It began with the tiger shark, a public holiday, a gasp from a crowd, and the discovery of a severed human arm in the most unexpected place, a glass tank, in Sydney's Coogee Aquarium. What followed was a tale of blackmail, drug smuggling, underworld crime, and a series of deaths that left more questions than answers. This is the true story of the shark arm murder, one of Australia's strangest unsolved mysteries. On April 25, 1935, Anzac Day, a crowd gathered at the Coogee Aquarium Baths in Sydney. The star attraction that day was a recently caught 4-meter-long tiger shark. Days earlier, fisherman Brett Hobson and his son had captured the shark off Coogee Beach in a last-ditch effort to revive the aquarium's waning business. It is important to know that at the time in Sydney, the shark was, quote, public enemy number one, end quote. Since in late February and early March, 3 young men had been taken by sharks at New South Wales beaches. Bounty hunters were employed to help rid Sydney's beaches of the menace, so crowds now flocked to see this monster with man-eating capabilities, which was given the run of the pool. For several days, the shark seemed quite active and had a vigorous appetite, but on April 25th, Anzac Day, it began acting strangely. It appeared ill, moved slowly, and was seemingly disoriented. But just after 4:30 p.m., there was a great commotion in the pool, and while spectators watched, the tiger shark began to thrash violently in its tank. To the shock of onlookers, the creature vomited several objects, among them a rat, a bird, and disturbingly, a human arm. The arm bore a rope tied at the wrist and a tattoo of 2 boxers sparring. It had not been bitten off, but clearly severed with a knife. The police, now involved, took fingerprints from the arm and quickly identified its owner, James Jimmy Smith. James Smith was a 45-year-old bankrupt builder and a former SP bookmaker and an amateur boxer, and a small-time criminal with a record of minor convictions, who had drifted onto the edge of the underworld and became involved in the illegal gambling that was widespread throughout Sydney at the time. Born in England, he had settled in the Sydney suburb of Balmain, where he had lived with his wife and child. Jimmy was known around town for working at Billard's Saloon, often associated with the local criminal underworld. One of his known associates was Reginald Holmes, a wealthy and seemingly respectable boat builder from Lavender Bay. But beneath Holmes' polished exterior was a dark side. He was deeply entrenched in smuggling operations, primarily involving narcotics and contraband ferried into Sydney by sea. Jimmy had worked with Holmes as a speedboat driver, transporting drugs and other goods, but the relationship soured after a failed insurance scam involving the sinking of a pleasure cruiser named the Pathfinder. By the mid-1930s, Australia was starting to really feel the pinch from the Great Depression. Some believed that strapped for cash and on bad terms with his former business associate, Jimmy threatened Holmes with blackmail, and tensions grew within the criminal network. Police soon discovered that Jimmy had last been seen alive on April 7, 1935, drinking with an old associate named Patrick Brady at the Cecil Hotel in Cornula. Brady, a forger and petty criminal, had rented a nearby cottage on Taliomombe Street, where the two allegedly continued their night. A cab driver later recalled driving Brady from the cottage to Holmes' home the next morning. Brady, the driver noted, seemed agitated and kept one hand hidden beneath his coat, perhaps concealing something. On May 16th, 3 weeks after the tiger shark had chucked up Jimmy's arm, Brady had been arrested on suspicion of Smith's murder. Under interrogation, he denied ever knowing Jimmy and pointed the finger at Holmes. Days later, on May 20th, in a bizarre twist shaken by the recent events, Reginald Holmes got into a speedboat with a bottle of brandy and a loaded pistol. He attempted to get very drunk and tried to shoot himself in the head, failed, and plunged into the harbor. Miraculously, a rope tangled around his wrist pulled him back onto the boat, and he woke up in a daze. What followed was a surreal 4-hour police chase across Sydney Harbor. Holmes finally surrendered and was taken to custody. Once he had recovered, Reginald claimed that Brady had shown up at his house carrying Jimmy's severed arm. threatened to blackmail him unless he handed over a large sum of money. According to Holmes, Brady had murdered Jimmy, dismembered Jimmy's body, and dumped the rest of his body in Guanabara Bay, a method that local underworld chilling youths referred to as the quote-unquote Sydney send-off. Holmes agreed to testify, but just hours before the court hearing on June 12, 1935, he was found dead in his car, shot 3 times in the chest. The key witness was gone. Without Holmes' testimony, the murder charge against Brady collapsed, and he walked free. No one had been charged with the murder of James "Jimmy" Smith. How did the arm end up in the shark tank? The leading theory is that after trying to blackmail Holmes with the arm, Brady or Holmes panicked and threw it into the sea near Maruba. A smaller shark likely found it and was then eaten by the larger tiger shark that Hobson caught. A grotesque chain of events brought the evidence back to the surface. As more details emerged, suspicion grew that this was more than a simple underworld feud. Smith had reportedly informed police on a young gangster named Eddie Wayman, who was later caught robbing a bank. Some believe Wayman may have arranged Holmes' assassination. At the time, Sydney was gripped by gang warfare. Neighborhoods like Darlinghurst, dubbed quote-unquote Razorhurst, were ruled by crime families, razor gangs, and drug syndicates. The rule of law was often enforced not by the courts, but by fear. In the end, Brady was acquitted and lived out his days quietly, dying in 1965. From a tiger shark's belly to a courtroom in chaos, the shark arm murder of 1935 remains one of Australia's most bizarre and captivating cold cases. It's a story of oceans and outlaws, of secrets sunk deep beneath Sydney's sparkling waters. We may never know for sure who killed Jimmy Smith or why Reginald Holmes met such a brutal end, but the tale lives on, part true crime, part urban legend, all mystery. Thank you for joining me on this strange and haunting journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share your theories in the comments. Till next time, stay curious, and remember, even the seas can't keep all its secrets.